In 1943, Europe was tearing itself apart. Cities were being reduced to rubble under constant bombardment. But inside a safe, sterile corporate office in Germany, a typist was drafting a completely mundane business letter. Bayer Pharmaceuticals was haggling over the price of raw materials, trying to get the cost down from 200 to 170 marks per unit. Those units were human beings. The letter was an official purchase order sent to the commander of the Auschwitz concentration camp, buying 150 living women to test a new sleep medication. A few weeks later, another letter arrived at the camp from that same corporate office. It simply read, "The experiment failed. All the subjects died. Please prepare a new batch." These records reveal a polite clinical transaction. A corporate machine treated human lives as disposable manufacturing inputs, processed with the same bureaucratic indifference as any other raw material. When the war ended, the world got a look at these experiments during the 1946 Nuremberg doctors' trial. For the first time in history, medical science itself was placed on the witness stand to answer for crimes against humanity. For decades afterward, from 1950 well into the 1980s, the medical establishment maintained a specific narrative. They assured the public and their medical students that these Nazi doctors were anomalies practicing useless, deranged pseudoscience. But historians in the 1980s started digging into the archives, and a detailed 2021 Lancet Commission report challenged that long-held belief. This chart shows standard global research practices of the era compared with the records kept in the camps. The data collection, the technical methodology, and the subsequent publications from these doctors met the exact mainstream global scientific standards of the 1940s. This finding suggests the pseudoscience label functioned as a shielding mechanism for the profession. It allowed medical institutions to distance themselves from a history where the technical methodology was often sound, even as the ethical foundation had vanished. The idea of selectively breeding humans to weed out undesirable traits, a field called eugenics, did not start in Germany. In the early 20th century, it was a respected academic discipline, championed by massive universities, funded by major institutions in the UK, and fully embraced by the public in America. When Hitler took power in 1933, he simply took this globally accepted academic theory and elevated it into strict, uncompromising state policy. There is a persistent myth that German doctors were forced into participating at gunpoint. The data shows otherwise. Nearly 50% of German doctors willingly joined the Nazi Party. They did it because the state offered them excellent funding, high social status, and a total lack of ethical restrictions on their research. The regime converted the role of the physician into a state health leader. In this new framework, a doctor's responsibility was the purification of the nation's genetic pool, placing the state above any individual patient. When a government offers immense prestige and unlimited resources, highly educated elite professionals will often dismantle their own foundational ethics to grab it. Once that ethical line was crossed, the escalation was rapid. The regime started by forcibly sterilizing 400,000 citizens. By 1939, this paved the way for Auction T4, a top-secret state operation designed to quietly execute German citizens with mental and physical disabilities. This workflow illustrates how the T4 program mechanized murder. Thousands of patient files funneled through a central office, where doctors made life and death decisions based on symptoms written on paper. A red pen mark meant death, and soon that counter reached 70,000 victims. This bureaucratic system served as the precise technological testing ground for the broader Holocaust. The mass cremation ovens and the gas chambers used in the death camps were invented and perfected right here by medical professionals. To understand how healers became executioners, psychologist Robert J. Lifton interviewed these doctors and identified a coping mechanism he called doubling. They psychologically split their minds into two entirely separate functioning identities. During the day, one identity stood on the ramps of the camps, sending thousands of people to their deaths without a shred of emotion. Then, in the evening, the other identity returned home, played with their children, and listened to the classical music of Beethoven. Industrial-scale cruelty does not operate on blind hatred alone. It requires a highly educated, sophisticated class of people willing to compartmentalize their own humanity. The horrors of the camps did prompt a global reaction. The Nuremberg trials produced the Nuremberg Code, laying the foundation for modern bioethics by demanding that no medical experiment can ever happen with the subject's explicit, informed consent. Yet the actual justice was incredibly hollow. Josef Mengele, the man who injected chloroform directly into the hearts of twins, escaped entirely. Even worse, the academic mentors who received the harvested organs from the camps returned to prestigious university directorships after the war, facing nothing more than minor fines. The rot went deep into the institutions themselves. It wasn't until the 1990s that an independent audit of the Max Planck Society, one of Germany's top research institutes, revealed a hidden legacy. For decades, medical students had been studying neurology using the preserved brains and spinal cords of the victims murdered in the T4 gas chambers. The scientific establishment's focus on data and technical progress led to a decades-long failure to address the origins of the materials they were studying. While the United States helped draft the Nuremberg Code, it also launched Operation Paperclip. The government pardoned hundreds of top Nazi scientists and doctors and hired them to win the Cold War space race against the Soviet Union. At the same time, from 1932 to 1972, the U.S. government ran the Tuskegee syphilis study. Hundreds of African-American men were intentionally denied basic medical treatment, like penicillin, just so researchers could clinically observe the disease slowly destroy their bodies. The archives of the Max Planck Society and the clinical records of Tuskegee demonstrate a shared underlying logic. In both systems, the moment a vulnerable group is defined as a subject or an asset, rather than a human being, the ethical guardrails designed to protect them are dismantled. Science is a tool, as capable of industrializing murder as it is of curing disease. If we trust institutions to police their own conscience without demanding aggressive, uncompromising public accountability, history provides a very clear warning of where that path leads.